Just calling. Oh, it's Megan. Cool.
Megan Barry.
Hi, Megan Barry. This is.
Hey, how are you guys? For some reason, I don't actually have the Zoom link. So
Okay.
I don't know where, if it's not it. I'm just getting the Google Doc in front of me. So why don't y'all send that to me? I'm just going to give you my email so you can send it over.
Okay. I'll get that to you right now. Sorry about
Send
that.
it over, and then, oh no, that's fine. My publicist has sent me something, but like I said, I can only, it's probably on me. It's probably somewhere. I
No,
can't find it.
It's certainly me.
At this point, it's like, I'll just, okay. Yeah,
This is starting out exactly how it's supposed to.
Exactly. All right, I'll see you all on in a second. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We did it.
Let me turn this off. Nobody bothers us. Done. There's a little bit of action today.
Yeah.
So anyway, so can you guys hear me okay? Does this work? Do I need to go find my microphone or are you guys all right?
No, we're
Yeah,
great.
we
And
can hear you.
can you hear us though?
Perfect.
Okay, great. We can't hear ourselves, so
I think it really interesting.
but we can hear you. So that's what matters.
That's good.
Very, very on brand for the Momcult Podcast.
Our guest today is the former mayor of Nashville, the first woman to be elected to the office. And while she was in office, she lost her only son, Max, to a drug overdose. Since leaving her position, she's been working to combat the shame and guilt that comes from this soul-sucking disease and to help those who struggle with substance use disorder and their loved ones by speaking up and speaking out. And we are extremely excited to read her book out on Penguin Random House on November 12th. It's called It's What You Do Next. Welcome to Momcult Forever, our mayor, Megan Barry.
How are you all today?
Well, that's what we were going to ask first. How are you? We're recording this November 7th. November 5th was 2 days ago. How are you?
Well, I'm better today than I was yesterday. And I think that's always how it is, right? It's about taking one step in front of the other. And yesterday I did lie in bed all day. I watched Seinfeld, Law and Order, kind of my go-to, like, where can I just not think about stuff? Cried. And then got up this morning and took a shower and said, all right, let's read this day. But you know what? That's like life, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but how are you guys? You didn't answer my question.
I guess I can go first as far as weekly check-ins. Somewhat similar to your book coming out, I have been working on my first script that I wrote the last couple of years, and we got it all done and had our shoot dates on Sunday and Monday. It'll probably be 10 minutes long, but as far as kind of the vulnerability and you're pouring your heart and soul into something, and then just that coming to fruition and all of the feelings. So I was on such a roller coaster leading up to filming, and then on such a high when we wrapped filming on Monday nights. I was starting to get sick right before we started filming, and I was like, no. So I went into complete conserve survival mode, and I fought it off until we were done wrapping. So I went straight into being sick and then the election. So it is this week. And then knowing we're going to interview you today, I was like, what is happening this week? Oh my gosh. So maybe I'm going to have a meltdown at some point while we're talking. I don't know. I'm still conserving my emotions because I'm trying to get better. So well, we shall see.
Isn't it though such a mom superpower that we can actually say, I can't do this right now. Like I'm going to have to wait. I'm going to have to wait to be sick. I'm going to have to wait to express my emotions. I'm going to have to wait to have a meltdown. And we do that.
Yep.
So it's a superpower. And then we get to fall apart and get
right.
sick.
Yeah. So my falling apart might be in the next hour and a half.
That's what we're here for.
We're in a very safe space.
Yeah. Sarah, how was your week?
It was good. I'm sorry to do this, but we've switched over meetings, and I just want to check that we've got the audio correct.
Sure.
External headphones.
Okay. My week was good. We got back from New York. It was 9 days with a 5-year-old. I've always really liked New York, but it's kind of overwhelming for me. It's kind of your opinion. Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming for me anyway. I thought a lot about how it would be, but I didn't consider, first of all, it was incredible. He grew like years in the process, and so did I. But the first 3.5 days I was really just like more reactive, and I didn't even really know what was happening. Eric was working. And so in the afternoons we would get a chance to talk, and I would be like, I think I have some work to do when I get home. Like, I don't know what's going on with me. Now, having had time to reflect, the fear of sort of not being able to protect was heightened in that scenario. And I didn't recognize what that was. I just knew, like, if, he's walking around touching walls constantly that have pee on them and then putting his hands in his mouth, that feels like alarming and different.
Right. Yeah. What was the trip?
My husband was recording an album for a guy named Parker McCullum. And it was during Halloween, and that's a huge, a thing for any little kid, but Parker especially really likes, especially to be with his dad on Halloween. And for the three of us, I think he would be bummed if either of us weren't there. So we were planning on coming up, and then long story short, we got to come up the whole time. And he's young enough that it doesn't matter all that much if he doesn't go to school. So we did homework, and he's like excited about homework still. And anyway, I think I'll be like living on that for a long time. It was really cool.
And what was he for Halloween?
Well,
so glad you asked.
He was, do you know the movie Labyrinth?
Oh my God. Yeah.
He was, so we watched, that's my favorite movie from about 5, which explains probably a lot. And he watched it last year and was like, I want to be that for Halloween. I want to be the Goblin King. And I want you to be Sarah. And I want Daddy. He wanted Daddy to be Hoggle, or his dad. What did I say, Daddy?
I don't know. That was
sorry. He wanted Eric to be like Hoggle, the whatever, that guy. But he was Bluto instead, and really nailed it. So we'll share a picture of that. It was good. Very good.
Very good. Okay. Well, that's pretty creative. And Joy, how about you?
Ava was a grandma, dressed up as a grandma with her best friend, which was great. And Penny, who's 3, was Sky from Paw Patrol.
Okay.
But she keeps telling everybody she was a ghost, because for the longest time leading up to Halloween, she wanted to be a ghost. And then they showed her the Sky costume, and she was like, all right, I'll do that. But now if anyone says, what were you for Halloween? She'll say, a ghost.
So you guys both you have 2 and you have 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so 12 and 3 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And okay. And how did you guys like connect?
I guess the short version is I heard of her. I moved here when I was 18. I was a troubled youth, and I moved here actually to go to treatment. And then I went to school, and then got interested in like the social strata of Nashville. And she was part of it and was doing like funny, cool stuff. And I was like, wow, she's so interesting. And then fast forward like 3 years, I ran into her at a dance party that her husband was throwing, and was like, you're married and your husband does these dance parties, and this is so.
Are you okay? How are you doing this?
Yeah. I was like, this has to be exhausting. Now I know that she's kind of has an eternal battery. Like, I wondered, that's one of my questions for you is, how do you, are you one of those people with the eternal battery? But anyway, that we met at a dance party is the very short version.
That's such a great Nashville story, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Do you have an eternal battery?
Totally do. Yeah. I think I have 2 switches, on and off, and the on switch is mostly like I'm set to that most of the time. I sleep great. I mean, I can turn it off and go to sleep. So
that's amazing. Have you always been like that? as a kid too?
No. I mean, I was that kid that loved to sleep. So sleep in, even as an adult, even like when we had our son young, when he was young, Bruce, my husband, was always on Max morning duty and I was always on Max evening duty. And so like I was the one that slept in. I had to get up and get ready for work, but I was always that just in time departure. Like I needed to be, like I was grabbing my coffee and walking out the door, and Bruce and Max were the ones that were like, Bruce was making breakfast. He was taking Max to school. He was making his lunch, all that stuff. And I was like a dervish trying to just get ready.
How long were you guys together when you decided you wanted to start a family? And did you always want kids? Was it planned, unplanned?
I mean, it's so funny to think back, right? Because you look through the lens of, your lenses are always colored when you look back about what you think you were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we met in Nashville. So I came here to go to Vanderbilt to get my MBA, and he was a first year professor. So I was actually closer. I was an older student, so I was actually closer to his age than I was to a lot of the kids I was in school with. He had a dog, and he read the stuff I read. And I mean, it was just, I don't know, kids. But anyway, so I got married. We married each other, and I was never actually even going to stay in Nashville, let alone like not have this great, I don't know, I was going to go travel. I had moved from London. I'd been living there for a couple of years. And so my intent was to move back and to like not stay in the South. And boy, here I am 30 years. Anyway, we got married. And I think for me, and this, you got to go back to the 90s, right? Kids were just a given. I don't even think you thought about it. Of course we were going to have a kid, probably many kids. And we got married in October, and I was pregnant by April.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I was 31 at the time. So, I mean, I think I had already bought into this whole, like, it was going to take me years to get pregnant. Right. Because I had never gotten pregnant. So I thought,
and you were in your 30s. Whoa.
My mom got pregnant with my sister, who is 12 years younger than me. My mom was probably in her late 20s. Yeah, she just turned 30. And we wanted my mom to not have the baby because we were totally convinced that the baby would have serious birth defects because my mother was so old, and I'm like, she was 30. So anyway, I got pregnant. I got pregnant easily. I stopped using birth control, and like 20 minutes later, I was pregnant. That was a little bit facilitated by the fact that, and I don't know how much information you want, but
all of it.
I used a diaphragm, and my dog, we had this dog that had gotten it. And so, so I got pregnant right after I didn't replace the diaphragm. Which is fine. And then we were excited. We were, I think, a little surprised it happened so fast. But we had just sent off in those days. You used to have to send off for tickets to like the Grateful Dead show. So we had sent off for tickets. You had to send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to get tickets. And then you would maybe win the lottery and you'd get the tickets. So the day that I found out I was pregnant, the day that the little P test came back positive, was the same day we got our Grateful Dead tickets for a show we were wanting to see in August.
Amazing.
And I taping the P test to a card that I had made, at the store, and then handed my husband both envelopes. And he opened up the first one, which had the Grateful Dead tickets in it. He was so excited. And then he was actually really like surprised.
Yeah.
But I had a super easy pregnancy. Max was born in December. I was working full time, but had decided that I might want to be a stay-at-home mom, or I might want to not work, or I might want to work part-time, or all the things that you're thinking when you're pregnant, because your brain is like awash in stuff. So I decided I was going to quit my job, and I started interviewing for other jobs. I'm like this pregnant, and I go and I get this other job, and it's going to be a part-time job. So that's perfect. I come home that night. I'm still 3 weeks before Max is due. I tell my husband that I've got this job. It's all going to be fun. And then I'm going to go in and quit the next day. And thankfully my water broke that night. And I went to the hospital. Max was delivered at Vanderbilt. And I had been very much about, I didn't want to have an epidural. I wanted, this natural childbirth. And by the time I was, 8 centimeters effaced and screaming for the epidural, they were like, sorry.
Too late.
Too late, sister. So I had a fairly easy delivery as well. And basically was ready to get up and go home. I was like, okay, let's just get this done. And Max actually had a little birth injury on his head. So he had to stay. So I got to stay. And then I did go in and quit my job on Monday. And my boss was like, go home. Go home. He's like, maternity leave. You don't need to make any decisions. In fact, you're insane. Just go home. And so I did. And thankfully, I didn't end up quitting the job that I loved. And it took me into a whole world of corporate America that I loved for 20 years. But it was just, I use that as an example when I talk to women about your brain is not thinking. And it doesn't actually start to come back to you until after menopause. Sorry, girls.
Oh, man. I officially have hot flashes, definitely weekly. I don't know if I have one every day, but then they don't last for too long, but it's something that my brain is like, are we going to acknowledge that this is happening? Is this happening? Yeah, it's happening.
So wait, can I ask, how old are you?
I turned 40 in July.
So have you talked to your doctor?
No, of course not.
For fuck's sake. Listen, y'all, one of the things, I think we do a really nice job about talking about childbirth and stuff. There's so much more we can talk about and support as women. Boy, there is no conversation about menopause. So, and that's crazy. And you absolutely need to talk to your doctor about this because you shouldn't be having hot flashes at 40. And there are all kinds of things that can be done and to help you and to navigate this. I think we do the same thing with menopause that we do with birth so much, which is, oh, well, that's just how it is. Women.
Just going to just deal with it. Deal with it.
Yes. I tell you what, I put myself on hormones. My doctor did for me when I started menopause. And I got to tell you, it made it super easy. And there's no reason to make life hard.
Okay, I'll go, Megan. Okay, fine.
Have a conversation. You're 40. I was 53 when I went through menopause. That's you're way on the early side.
Yeah. How was your postpartum experience?
Well, I could deal with work a whole lot easier than I could deal with a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I relate.
I think I had a fantasy about being a stay-at-home mom that was going to I don't know, raise chickens and wear a prairie dress and then have 14 kids and it would all be great. And I went back to work when Max was 10 weeks old.
Mm-hmm. Get me out of here.
Yeah, no. I know that.
No idea.
And so.
Did you consider, I'm asking because we're at the place where we're deciding whether or not we're going to have another kid or not. And did you consider that? Was that a difficult decision? How did you come to it? Or did you just not, that?
Yeah, no, we did. You kind of get, I think that our biology makes us broody. And so probably when Max was about 3. So just for life perspective at this point, I had a really kind of a nice corporate job. It took me, I traveled a lot. So I was going to China and I would be gone for 2 weeks. And so it wouldn't be, as Bruce would say, it's not the 2 weeks during the week that matters. It's the 3 weekends that you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're leaving me with a 3-year-old. And at that point in our lives, Bruce still didn't have tenure as a professor, right? So he's researching, teaching, trying to do all this stuff. I'm traveling with my job and stuff. But Max is about 3, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think we should have another kid. I grew up with 3 sisters. I love my sisters. I would love to have a girl, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And Bruce said to me, he said, if you want to have another baby, that's fine. But the only person's life who is going to dramatically change. And you can't do this anymore. Like I can't take care of a 3-year-old and infant. Mm-hmm. That's not, and that's, he was right. That's not fair. Like I couldn't do that to him. And so I didn't want my life to change. And so I figured out that actually 2 adults to 1 child was a really good ratio for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I think about people who are outnumbered, parents that are outnumbered by their kids. And I'm just like, because right now, as soon as Penny was born, it was like, hey, I'm with Penny and you're with Ava. Like, we clearly have one of us is usually on one of the kids. And I'm like, what in the world do you do when there's another one? And who's taking care of that one?
Well, usually they're raising themselves based on what my 2 sisters below tell me.
Yeah. What is that? What's the age gap between you and your sisters?
I'm the oldest. And then my next sister is 3 years younger than me. My next sister is 3 years younger than her, so that's 6 years. And then my last sister is 12 years from me, so 6 for my second. So there's
yeah. I have a sister. Well, Ava and Penny are 8 years apart, and my sister and I are 9 years apart. So she definitely, there's definitely the older sibling that is coming, swooping in and helping pick up the pieces. But the parents can't.
Right. And how about you, Sarah? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 brothers. One passed a few years ago, but 2 brothers and 1 sister. And actually, you mentioned that you have a pretty large age spread. My sister's 11 years older than I am. And I think that was, of course, I mean, I checked every... Why? My sister and my dynamic is really great. Like, I love that age spread. So...
Same. I love all my sisters. They're great. What a gift to have sisters. My youngest sister Molly, who's the one that's the youngest. She's the princess.
Yeah, I'm the youngest. No comment.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Joy.
Do you have trouble meal planning? Is that a struggle for you?
What?
What's that?
Huh? I do have this. Yeah, no. Yes, I do have that. I have that issue.
Me too. Especially there's like always a one night where we do Blue Apron, but there's always a couple nights a week where we don't have a meal planned. And it's usually a night where we're all trying to eat something together that is affordable and good quality food. And what's a really great solution for that we have for all of you listeners out there?
What?
Is Mr. Aaron's Goods.
Oh, yeah.
And we have an update about Mr. Aaron's, which is that instead of just walking in and picking up your food or getting it delivered, you can actually go in and dine there now. They have new hours. They're open Tuesday through Sunday. You can have fresh pasta, sauces, bagels, schmears, all the specialty goods. They're located at TKO in East Nashville, and they're open 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
weekdays, and then on the weekends, 9 a.m. to noon, or until they sell out.
Yeah.
You can also still order online, and if you do that, you can use code Momcult for 20% off your entire order. Yeah. They're the best people.
Yeah, they're amazing. Give them your money, and they will give you your sustenance.
So in your job, it was in, and I understand correctly, it was in ethics or in kind of keeping corporations more in line.
Yeah, no irony there. Ethics.
Did that lead you into what you did later, like public servant life, or?
Kind of. I mean, there was definitely a component of it that intersected with government. But my interest in politics was much more at the base level of local politics. So I got involved with my neighborhood association first. So we have a very active neighborhood association. And y'all might remember, or not, that there's a school over here called Aiken.
Mm-hmm.
So Aiken at one point was going to get torn down. And so there was a whole movement that kind of, mobilized and got it and, to be saved. And it was really instructive to see like how a group of local people could actually make a real difference in an outcome in their neighborhood. And then I was involved. Max went to Aiken, and I was involved with the PTO and stuff. Again, just seeing the collective energy of what groups of people who were dedicated to issues, the difference that could make. And so that was really my inspiration. And I luckily worked for a company at the time that was like, hey, yeah, if you want to run for office and that can be your public service, because it was a part-time job, and they're like, yeah, sure. So I was really lucky on that too. But I did. I ran for at-large and for Metro Council in Davidson County. I ran with 35 other people the first time I ran, and there were 5 open slots. I mean, it wasn't. It didn't suck that my name started with a B. So I was like, maybe the second one on the ballot, and I think like, I don't know who these people are. Let's just get alive. I was really honored to get elected, and at large in Nashville is kind of an interesting thing because you've got 40 council members and 35 of them are focused on the district. So they're more focused on, getting your garbage picked up and making sure that your neighbor's dog isn't bothering you. But the at-larges are supposed to be more about policy. And that's the piece that interested me, making sure that we were passing policies that were meaningful to Nashvillians. I mean, one of the pieces of legislation I was really proud of to pass while I was on council was the non-discrimination ordinance that made it so that we wouldn't discriminate against people who were LGBTQ. But that was crucial. It took a long time to pass. And it wasn't that long ago. So, and now, we have Olivia Hill, who's an at-large member, who's our first trans person to get elected. I mean, so Nashville is evolving. I mean, even though the national picture may look a little different, I still think Nashville's a good place.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to stay, because the things you're trying to do take so long? How do you stay patient?
I would say that the way you kind of keep your energy is you gotta stay positive. I mean, and that maybe is just also how I'm programmed. I think some people just are programmed that way, to try to look for the brighter side of life. Which, it doesn't mean that I'm a Pollyanna. It doesn't mean I'm naive. It doesn't mean bad shit doesn't happen to me. It just means that you have to have a faith that things are going to get better. And I think that's how I get up every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. And it's the experience of having had hard things happen or choosing things that led me to hard places that allows me to see like, it's going to get better. Like, I just know that it's going to get better if I just keep plugging along, as my dad says.
Yep. Well, my husband and I have a saying between the two of us. It's one foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to every day get up and put one foot in front of the other. And that's how that's momentum breeds newness, and it breeds walking towards something. But I think that for some people, it's about running from something. But for me, it's always about walking towards something.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to, and I don't know if this is also what drew me to acting. Even when I was younger, I always kind of craved the hard stuff because I knew it would just give me more depth as a human, more empathy towards other people's situations, being able to connect with someone that's been through something similar. Like I always kind of craved, not trauma. That sounds more depressing, but like, oh, this is where growth starts. Like this is going to change me. And there was always something about that was not exciting, but like, oh, real, I'm like living real life right now.
Oh, absolutely. I when I was growing up, my mom has a deep faith, and we used to get this magazine called Guideposts. It's it has these stories about faith and angels and stuff, and so we would always fight over it because we always loved the stories. And I can still remember being a 12-year-old reading these stories and being like, I don't have anything. Like I wish I could write a story, but like I don't have anything to write about. And hey, God, wouldn't it be really cool if you gave me some shit to write about? So guess what? Sometimes God, pray.
Congratulations. Here's the greatest trauma of your life.
All right, let me give you some stuff to think about. Yeah.
I specifically remember being at youth group in middle school, and there was a girl whose parents were getting divorced. And I think people were like giving their testimonies, and I was so jealous that I didn't have a testimony.
Darn it. Well, I'm guessing that life has fixed that for both of you.
It sure has. Yeah. I just didn't think becoming a mom would be one of them.
Exactly. Now you have a testimony.
Yeah.
Amen.
When did you know that you wanted to write a book?
Ooh, so I always loved to write. But again, I did it in high school and I did it in college, and then put it away because you're never gonna be that person. But then when COVID hit and there was time, I'm a big believer that if you don't know how to do something, you should get educated about it. And at the time, Gotham, which is a writers' workshops out of New York, were doing, they went to online. And so I was like, oh, I don't have to go to New York. I can actually do this and benefit from it. So I started taking these Zoom classes with, my fellow COVID shut-ins, and we started with memoir. And it was, I did memoir 1, and then I did memoir 2, and then I went back and did memoir 1 again because I was like, I don't think I got it the first time after taking memoir 2. And it was really great. And so I started writing this book, or I started putting together the bones, I think, of a book, and then didn't really know what to do with it. I mean, the weird part about memoir versus fiction is that fiction, they nobody's going to look at it until it's all done, right? They like, you have to write the whole book. Memoir, they want a couple of chapters and like a proposal. And now I'm talking about like a publisher if they're going to get interested in it. And so that seemed like that seemed easier.
Mm-hmm.
Then after I kind of put it together, I thought, well, maybe I should just make it fiction, and so I took a fiction class, and I was sharing some of it with my husband, and he's like, you don't get to call it fiction if all you've done is change our names. Okay, I'll go back to memoir.
Subject does Bruce teach? Did you say that? I apologize if you did.
I didn't. He teaches in the business school. He's negotiations forever, but now he teaches ethics.
That's interesting.
Yeah, to budding capitalists, as he says. And they are all captives because they have to take it.
Did Shannon help you with the book? Okay, I thought so.
So after I had, like the bones of this, then, and I got an agent, Margaret Riley King. She's with WME. And she then said, okay, now let's get you somebody who can help you put the proposal together. Because that was another 80 pages. And I was like, I don't know how to write a proposal. And that's when Shannon stepped in and she's like, I can help you do this. And so she did it. And then
she's the best.
So amazing. She did. And she's got her own books that she's writing.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
I'm very excited for her.
Right. I just love her so much. So yes, she helped me. And so we got it all done, and then we started shopping it, and it was just right after all these political memoirs had come out. And so I have this really nice stack of no letters, which was also kind of interesting. But then we got somebody who said yes. So, which was exciting, Ben Bella, and they said they would publish it. And so It comes out on Tuesday, which I'm excited about. And
Very exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can see it on the, because I actually just got the books.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's What You Do Next, out on Penguin Random House on November 12th.
Yes, thank you for that shout out. It's the first time I've said it because I wanted to get through the campaign before we did. So this is perfect timing. But yeah, so I'm super excited about it. And if the way it looks, I don't know if you can tell, but like that's me on the cover, as designed to be a little fuzzy. So
because you're losing your mind. Because you're like, am I here anymore? I don't even know.
I don't know. Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. And it's about, we're talking about motherhood. So, it's about the three things that I loved the most in 2015. And that would have been Max, our child, our son, and my job as the mayor of Nashville, and my husband. And then over the course of the 2.5 years from the moment I got inaugurated, the two things I lost, Max and my job, and then the one thing I could save, which was my marriage, my husband. And so that's what it does. It takes you from 2015 to 2020. It's not like I was born. It's not that.
Skip to the drama.
Right. I just cut straight to the chase. You get to go through the process with me. You come along for the ride. My hope is that as you're reading it, you're like, oh my God, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, shit.
She did it.
She did.
Here, we in like reading about what it's about, and we're really excited to read it whenever we can. But it focuses on resilience. It sounds like, and how do you cultivate resilience in the moments that you dealt with that are unimaginable? How do you have advice? Do you have I don't know what to say. I don't have a well-formed question, but.
Well, you've lost somebody that you love. And so that grief is this really kind of non-linear process. And depending on what is happening, like with Max, Max had substance use disorder and he died of an overdose. And the day he died wasn't the start of our crisis. We had been in crisis as a family way before the day he died. And so it's a lot about that. It's a lot about the family in crisis. And the hope is that it will give other families hope. We didn't talk about it at all, right? We didn't talk about Max's drug issues or the fact that he went to rehab or, we kept all of that within a very little, small, confined space because we didn't want to deal with it. Mm. And we also didn't want it to follow him. I think that's what we told ourselves, right? We told ourselves that, we don't want Max to be seen as an addict or any of that stuff. And so let's just not tell anybody. And then let's get him to rehab, which we did, and went to rehab. And then we really felt like, check that box. Mm-hmm. That's what we needed to do. And if we had had a better, deeper understanding of this disease, Max would still be here because I think we would have been able to help him understand how he had to manage it. And Bruce and I didn't know how he had to manage it. Hell, we couldn't even talk to each other because we were so, as parents, we were in such different places about how to deal with this. Mm. And I think that's pretty typical in a marriage. You have different parenting styles, and depending on what the crisis is, those parenting styles can either be really helpful for each other or really alienating. And for us, it was really alienating because the way we were dealing with it was just so different. And then we dealt with grief so differently as well. We were really incredibly lucky to find our way back to each other. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of families don't. I think the statistic after Max died I saw was 80% of parents who lose a child divorce.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to the day Max died was not the start of our marital discord, our issues. Things have been percolating because if you have a sick child, marriage is really hard. I mean, marriage is hard anyway, and so is parenthood. And then if you throw in a sick child to that, it's really hard.
Do you feel like you would have done things differently? Like, would you have been more public about it?
I wish now we had, because I think it might have saved his life, and my goal now is to save others, right? So by letting people know they're not alone. I don't think we were equipped then to be public about it. I don't think I think our shame and our guilt was so pervasive and overwhelming that there's no way we could have done it, because that's not who we were at the moment.
Mm-hmm. What measures did you take after the fact? It sounds, I mean, I'm just truly guessing, but to manage your own mental health, to get back, was the journey back to each other deliberate? Like, what work did you do? If I can ask that. Sorry.
I mean, that's a great question. Marriage is work, y'all. I mean, it's not, I mean, we just celebrated 31 years, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a miracle. And I'll tell you what was deliberate. The deliberate choice was not getting a divorce.
Mm.
Yeah.
We didn't know how we were going to actually stay married, but we knew we weren't going to get a divorce. And we had a lot more than just Max's death that we were dealing with. I mean, I had an affair. It was obviously very public. I had to plead guilty. I lost my job. All of that is also part of this. And, kudos to Bruce for being like somebody who stood with me. I mean, again, he wasn't sure how he was going to stand with me, but he just knew he wasn't going to leave. And I still love, he's never said anything about everything that went down except for one tweet that he tweeted like the day after I left office. And it was a Groucho Marx quote. And it said, "Learn from the mistakes of others. You will never live long enough to make them all yourself."
Wow.
Okay.
That's reason enough to stay married. That alone.
There's a lot of reasons to stay married to Bruce, but I was lucky that I was married to somebody who loves me and who I love, and that love was the foundation that we were able to pull through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems like, how amazing to have, obviously anybody who's married knows the work, and to have our baseline is we're not going anywhere. And that's enough for now. We don't know anything else, but that's enough for now.
That was pretty powerful. I mean, and again, we had to figure out how to stay married, which was a whole nother longer process. And thankfully we did, because we really like each other too. And there is also something about this connection, this bond that we have, because we will always be Max's mom and dad. Like, that's just something that connects us forever. I'm not saying that would ever be enough, but at the time it was a starting point for us. And it was a piece that we knew we would never find with somebody else, or, and so that connection was really powerful.
Is there something specifically that if somebody is dealing with stuff in their marriage, if they're dealing with the loss of a child, is there a modality or a resource or something like that specifically that you turn people towards?
Yeah. So there are lots of organizations out there that deal with grief. And I highly encourage you, even if your spouse isn't ready and you grieve differently, to make sure that you're seeking out the resources. I mean, I made a commitment to go to therapy for a year after Max died. And I was going to show up to therapy whether I wanted to be there or not. Bruce, that was not his thing. And as much as I, at the beginning, was trying to cajole him into doing what I thought he needed, because it was what I was doing, that wasn't what he needed. He needed other stuff. And thankfully, there's lots of different paths to your mental wellness, your mental health, your grief process. I just had it yesterday. I also have, I had this book, and it's funny, it's still on my desk because I still look at it. and again, this was just for me. It's called Healing After Loss, right? And it's these meditations that every day for that year that after Max died, I would read them. And all my sisters had it too. Like we had it together. So we were kind of grieving through our process. I mean, this wouldn't interest Bruce at all. Like that's not his style.
Was there resentment about that he wasn't going to therapy?
But yes, there's a whole thing where you resent, right? Because I am I've gotten a lot better. So, I'm a work in progress. I felt like my way was the only way and that Bruce really would benefit from my way. Mm-hmm. So part of our being able to figure each other out has been that maybe not my way is not always the way that you have to go.
I still really feel like it is, but
yeah, this is hard for me to hear because I definitely feel like therapy is the way, the truth, and the light.
You will get no argument from me. And so I know that different people do it in different ways. And some people need groups. Some people need individual. I needed individual. For Bruce, it was different. And he found his way, right? For him, it was physical activity. It was playing tennis.
More distraction almost, which is hard for the person who's trying to like really be present and live through the grief. It makes you feel like your partner is batting away the grief.
And, but I didn't know until I had a boy. Also, I've known boys my whole life, but until I had a boy, I didn't realize how different they are. I say that I think almost every podcast now because it becomes more and more apparent as he gets older, but that they do process things physically. Like when you said that, I was like, the physicality is just a whole other thing for boys, men, boys.
Boys become men, and they do the same thing. Yes, and it is so true that they are. I even remember Max as a kid. He was physical. It was the physical that got him his peace, right? Like that's where he was happiest. Like he was happiest when he was in Colorado, or he was skiing, or he was hiking, or something like that. And we gave each other a lot of grace, right?
It's not easy to do.
No, because like you just said, like I wanted to sit down and like have a conversation, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
And not just about this, but like 1,000 things. And what I came to appreciate was that, first of all, my husband didn't need to have the conversation. And for some of that's a real grace. And then for other stuff, he was processing stuff just fine. Like, it was totally different than mine, but we were getting to the same space about how we were going to move forward and move on and celebrate Max and remember him, but also, not be sad every time we said his name. That's a whole thing. I don't know. I can remember the first time we did, it was probably 4 years after he was dead.
Wow.
And I remember we were sitting outside and we were laughing about something he had done. And I could just see in both of us this, like, oh my God, we're actually talking, we're joyful, right? We're the sadness is not the front anymore. The sadness is the back.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And the joy is the front. But there was a long time where to say Max's name, to remember something was so deeply painful that we just didn't talk about that. So
my next question was going to be how grief looked then, the process of how grief looked then to how you carry it now.
Yeah. So I go back to that idea that grief wasn't the minute that Max died. Grief was a lot of there was a lot of grief along the way. Grief for where Max was, what he was struggling with, how I couldn't fix it, wanting him to be different. Like why can't I just shake him by the shoulders and make him be well, or make him stop whatever is driving him? Why can't I get him to lose weight? Why can't I get him to, cut his hair? 1,000 things that about me wanting to change my child into this image and that's part of the parenting piece, like, right? So Bruce was always the parent that would Like, he's fine. Like, like, just get off his back. And I was like, no, he's not. Like, Max needs to do X, Y, Z. Come on. Like, he needs to be this uber super kid. And Bruce was like, well, he doesn't. Like, he can just be this other kid. And it doesn't mean that I didn't love exactly who Max was. I just always wanted him to excel, right? Like, because he was smart, he potential, like all the things that we look at in our kid, and we think, well, you could do all these things. Why aren't you doing them? Like, and so that's where our parenting style was already very different. So as Max enters into the space of addiction, I want to fix it. And Bruce, his style is like, he's fine. We all experimented with drugs. We all kind of went through this. It's all fine.
Right. It's a process. Like, let him just get through this phase. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not going to be a problem. And so when Max dies, I am super angry at my husband. And Max, right? I mean, let's be honest. I was, and myself, right? I'm mad at all of us. And I'm mad at Bruce because he thought we could just ignore it. I'm mad at me because I didn't fix it. And I'm mad at Max because he died. The grief isn't just grief. At the very beginning, it's a lot of anger.
It's so much easier to feel anger than sadness.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I go back to like that grief process was like, there was a lot of, I was already grieving for about who Max wasn't going to be before he ever died.
Do you feel like that was magnetized because of your job and the role and wanting this image of the family that you wanted people to think that you were?
Oh, completely. I mean, like, sure. I mean, and I like to think that maybe that was magnified because of my role as the mayor, but it probably would have been the same if I hadn't been mayor either. I mean, I think so much of us is judged. We are so much judged by the images that we project into the world. And my gosh, everybody's life looks perfect. Like, right? I mean, open up social media and everybody's living their best life. Although it's gotten a little better now, but back then it was definitely, that's what the images were. I remember when I was get my inauguration and Max was home, and Max had hair like down here. And my team is like, oh my God, like we got to get into a barber, like hair and everything. And I'm so glad they didn't. But I was in that too, right? Like, oh yeah. And he shows up, and bless him, right? This is where Max like was willing to do, like he was actually, and he's like taken a hairband, he's tied it back. And so it looks short. And of course it's not short, but it's like, it was fine. And so, like when they brought him home, we had to get him home from Colorado after he died. I was like, I'm so glad we didn't cut his hair. I'm so glad we didn't shave off that scraggly 22-year-old beard that, because that was Max. But there was lots of people who, and me included, who wanted Max to be presented in a different way. And, there he is. That's Max. Like, he had his hat turned back, he was always wearing, he had a uniform. It was a white t-shirt, gym shorts, a hat backwards with his long hair. I mean, that's what he wore all the time. And the fact that he took his hat off to come to my inauguration was pretty meaningful.
Joy.
Sarah.
Parker started using a booster seat.
Big moves.
Yeah. And his legs sit slanted down. So I put this breakfast box with his eggs and like Cheerios and stuff in it in his lap on the way to school, which is teaching him terrible habits. But I digress. It spilled on the floor. And I tried to clean it up with my at-home like handheld vacuum. And I was just like, I was never a person before we both worked at Camel Express in marketing department. I was never a person who washed my car, and I didn't understand really the value of it. But the vacuums at Camel Express are bananas.
I mean,
and really
for car seat grossness.
Yeah.
And like when you take the car seat off and move it and all the stuff underneath and inside. Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
At each of the vacuum bays, we have glass cleaner infused microfiber towels that you can wipe up that stuff that is underneath the seat.
Or inside the cup holder.
Right. And in about, I don't know, in 2.5 minutes you can go through the whole wash. And then in 5 minutes, because of the power of the vacuums at any of the 5 locations in and around Nashville, you can really like clean your whole car to the level that I'm accustomed. I see some people there like really doing it.
Oh yeah.
But
it's like their thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that. I support it. Good job. So if you, Momcult listener, would like to get your first wash at Camel Express for free, just text code MOMCULT to 22322 and we'll send you a free wash on us. And you can.
They've already stopped listening. They've fast forwarded through this whole ad.
Oh, God.
Do you have a favorite over the years, or do you have a funny story about him?
I do. I do. I was thinking about this the other day. So Max had been with a friend. They're probably in 5th grade, right? So he'd gone over to a friend's, right? We'd send our children to friends' houses. And Max would come home and from the friends, and he kind of looked a little sheepish. You know that look. So he's upstairs, and I get a call from the mom saying, she's crying, and she's like, oh my God, we have to come over. We got to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. So
Yay!
I come up to Max's room. I'm like, hey, Max, Mrs. So-and-so is coming over. Is there anything that you want to tell me before she gets here? He kind of looks and he thinks, and he's like, well, Mom, okay, like, look, my friend and I, we were with some other kids, and we went to the MAPCO, and there were some other kids, and they went in, and they stole some windshield stuff. And then we came outside, and, like, they lit it on fire, and they were burning it. He's like, but I stayed outside. I'm like, yeah, well, that's called a lookout. Like, you're not off the hook. And you would have been in just as much trouble. And so I'm like, okay, so I brace myself and I go downstairs and she's crying. She's very upset. I'm like, well, just tell me what happened. She's like, well, I believe that Max and my son were hanging out, and there was some older kids, and they got a hold of some cigarettes and they smoked some cigarettes. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, different version. Interesting.
And so I'm like, really? Is that what happened? She's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. You your child's being, So I go back up to Max afterwards, after she leaves, and I say, Max, she told me something else. And he's like, well, yeah, there were cigarettes. He's like, but I didn't smoke. I was like, now do I call the mom up and say, actually, our children are like thieves and pyromaniacs? Or do I just let it go, like, with the cigarettes? And she was sad about the cigarettes. I just thought, you know what?
Better that she doesn't.
We're just going to let it go. Because I think this will she'll completely be undone. So, he was always willing to, like, confess to me and tell me stuff. And I always could tell when he was lying, right? Like, he got a phone when he was in 7th grade, and Bruce and I are headed downtown to go see, like, a concert. And he's called us, like, 8 times on his new phone before we've hit Bridgestone Arena. Like, hey, are you guys at the show? Is that all good? I'm like, okay, Bruce, we're turning around.
Mm-hmm. Checking in on us a little too much.
We come home. It's been like with a friend, and of course, the bong is in the bushes.
That reminds me of one time I was going to sneak out in, I think 6th grade, maybe 7th grade. And I made this really, really detailed list of like what to do like really elaborate. I was always a list maker. And obviously my mom found the list and was waiting on me downstairs. I just now felt the sickness that I felt. That was the first time I ever felt that thing that I felt many times again. Just,
well, yeah, Max always got caught.
yeah.
He never really got away with it. And so maybe that made him more honest because he always knew he was going to get caught. I will tell you that one of the nicest things that happens, and it still happens, which is lovely, is people will come up to me and say, hey, like I knew Max, and they'll tell me a Max story, which always makes me happy, smile, which is a great gift living in this town where we grew up because there are still people who knew it. So I will take a Max story any day. If you knew my child and you see me on the street or in the grocery store or someplace, please stop me.
We had our friend Tracy on earlier this season, and she lost her husband, and she said the same thing. She said, don't come up and say, I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't want any pity. But if you have a story about my husband and a memory, I will hear those all day long.
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree. There's also, because children are different. I think children are different. People don't want to, they think that you're going to be so sad.
Some more sensitive for sure. Yeah.
Max grew up in this town. And so like I'm surrounded by friends and people who grew up with Max, right? Kids and parents. So one of the best gifts I love is when I can say his name and I can remember something about him and I can talk about him, because people talk about their kids all the time. It's just, which is fine, which is a gift and it's great. And so occasionally it's nice to be able to say something about Max, just because it's not a current story, but it's something that maybe I remember or something that's special.
This might be a really stupid question. Do you still feel like a mom?
I think so. I don't know how it would feel otherwise, so I'm not sure I can do a comparison. I will tell you that after Max died, and this kind of goes back to the question you guys were asking me earlier about multiple children, people are awkward in the moment, so I'm giving them grace. I remember at Max's memorial service, these lovely folks stood in line to give Bruce and me their condolences. And, and there were probably it was probably 5 or 10 seconds, with each person as they passed through. And I still remember somebody, and I couldn't tell you a face or even a gender, who stood in front of me and said, don't you wish you'd had a spare?
Ooh.
Yeah. And I even get a chill just remembering that. Of course, I don't know what it's like to have another child. So it never occurred to me to have a spare, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. So, again, people I felt like this person waited in that line for probably 2 hours and then probably just said the thing that was on their mind, the thing that was bothering, the thing that they were focused on the most with their own life.
Mm-hmm.
Was, oh my God, I don't know how I would feel if I lost one of my children. And thank God I have 2, where if you lose a child, there is no equivalency.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that because you lost this one, oh good, you still got this one. I'm sure, right? So that one, and then I do remember this was just a funny aside. Bruce and I were at the farmer's market probably about 6 months after Max had died. And this guy walked up to us and said, oh my God, y'all, it's probably not too late to adopt.
Damn.
You're like, y'all, that's the last thing. We are barely surviving.
We're barely talking to each other. I don't think adoption. You got to remember at this point, Bruce and I are in our 50s, right? No. Yeah, no. It's too late to adopt. But we just looked at each other like, wow. That, and we're like, we had a good laugh about it too, but it was people say awkward shit because they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I have a whole
it's all in the book.
I mean, what I see is you out here being a mom to Max and to, I don't know if you're being a mom to moms, but being supportive of other moms, who may or may not be in the same situation or dealing with those scenarios and helping guide them through what you experienced. And yeah, her question was, do you feel like a mom? But
well, and a better phrasing of that is, how does that resonate with you now?
Sure. I mean, I'll always be Max's mom, like, and so part of my mission now is to take Max's story and to tell it. Because by telling Max's story to other moms and other parents and grandparents and friends in spaces and places is to help people get rid of shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. And so from that, I only have that story to tell because I was Max's mom. And because Max enriched my life so much and was such a gift to me. I mean, hey, he drove me crazy too, but he also was the best thing that ever happened. So I will always be Max's mom. And, the weird part is for me is Max is frozen in time, right? He will always be 22. Like that's when Max's life ended. And so like my old younger sister, her son, who was the same age as Max, born the same year, is getting ready, got married. He's getting ready to have his first baby. So my sister's getting ready to have her first grandbaby. And these kinds of parts of life that others moms will have are parts that I won't experience. And I would be lying if I said that doesn't make me sad. Mostly because it's the stuff I won't experience, but it's the stuff that Max won't experience. It's the stuff that the joys that I looked forward to for him to be a parent, to do all these things. And so that's another kind of grief. Mm-hmm. That kind of hits you sometimes.
What does your self-care look like right now? How do you stay afloat?
Other than Seinfeld and Law and Order.
Other than Seinfeld and Law and Order.
Yeah. Well, yeah, running for office. I figured why not run for Congress? That'll be some good stuff.
I got an idea.
That in a really red state, in a really red district. My self-care looks like a lot of walks. Like I walk our dogs, multiple times a day, which gives me peace. I do hot yoga, which I still love. I love hot yoga. You just get in that space and your mind is focused on your body and its movements. Mm-hmm. And so I think about that now from when I was giving Bruce and Max, their how they process stuff. I now so much more appreciate the physicality of just being physical and not being in your head. Mm-hmm. And that took me a long time to appreciate that, but I totally appreciate it. It's such a great stuff there for me. And I have family and friends. Oh my gosh. I have such a deep connection to my family, even though they also drive me crazy and are, we're all very different, and I have friends and I can't imagine walking through this life without all these women that have walked with me that are such a gift.
Are your sisters here?
No.
Okay.
It's cool you guys stay in touch so closely, it sounds like.
Yeah, we do. Well, they're all coming for my book launch, so.
They better.
Yeah.
Not to rapid fire, but to rapid fire. Are there any pieces or a piece of wisdom that you would give to a mom who's about to be a new mom or
Can you give this advice? I mean, you can, but is anybody going to take it?
Yeah, we get that. We get that a lot. It's just for show, really.
Yeah. We just want to hear it. We're not going to take it.
Yeah, we're not going to take it.
I know when the baby's crying and you're changing the diaper and he's just thrown up on you and you haven't had a shower in 3 days. Be in the moment. Right? No.
Just appreciate it.
Exactly. So I don't really know. I got nothing.
That's great. That's advice in itself.
What a delight to be with you and just to talk about all the things. So.
Well, we're so honored that you, that you would take the time. I at some point I saw that you followed us, and I had a suspicion it was probably through Shannon. that you even knew the podcast existed. And I was like, hey, Sarah, she follows us. So maybe it's worth like DMing and just seeing if she wants to be
And
on.
then after the fact, I found that we have a mutual friend Charles Wiggins, who started cutting my hair in second grade. I was like, wow, it felt like a really small town at that moment. Although he knows everybody. It blows my mind.
She was trying to,
Yeah, go ahead.
she was trying to get info on you for a haircut
No, I wasn't.
preparation.
I was bragging about it.
One thing Charles loves to do is talk. Nicest way. Yeah, he started cutting my sister's hair because one of my sisters lived here for a time when she was in business school as well at Vanderbilt, and that would have been when Max was like 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been with Charles
all that time.
Yeah, for at least over 27 years, I think.
Wow. Yeah, same with my sister. And I guess now, second grade, it really is true. Started cutting my hair there, and he told my mom that I was going to be a problem, and also immediately like tousled my hair and was like, "I'm going to give you the freshly fucked look."
You did not.
And so
When you were in second grade, he said that?
I think so. He did. Yeah.
Well, Charles's life hasn't been linear either.
It made sense in the moment. I was like, I get that. Yeah.
That is so funny. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
So delightful. And so please have me back. Please definitely check out my book. I hope you can find time to read it. I actually recorded the audio as well. So if you are more of an audio listener, it's available out there on audio as well. I had a great time recording it.
I bet. Was it emotional recording it?
I hadn't read it for a while.
Right.
And I mean, this will kind of sound silly, but I actually liked it. So it was good.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't sound silly. That's a great feeling.
Well, a lot of people, you write stuff and then I didn't like it for a long time. I left it and I was like, but when I had to do the audio, I was like, oh, good. I actually, okay. It's a good little book. I hope people like it and listen to it. It's a quick read. You can read it pretty fast. And I think you'll find it's funny. It's wry. It's a good story.
We can't wait. I love when the author reads the book. We're excited.
And you've got such a good voice for it too.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Well, I told Meryl Streep was available.
She's too busy on Only Murders.
On the second pressing.
I heard that her and Martin Short are dating in real life.
Seriously?
I think so.
Wow. Pop culture corner.
How adorable is that?
So adorable. Isn't it cute when old people date? Okay.
So cute.
Don't call Meryl old. You can follow Megan at Mayor Megan Berry. You can follow us at Momcult Podcast. And you can listen anywhere you get your podcast or at themomcult.com. And Megan, we're so grateful for your time, especially this week, and for everything that you're doing.
And congratulations. Mm-hmm. What a massive accomplishment.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.